This game made just over $500 million, and I've just rebuilt the exact same core mechanics in under 2 hours using only Claude Code AI and Unity without having to write a single line of code. And on this video, I'm gonna go exactly throughout the process and the AI workflow I use to build this mechanic. By the end of this video, you'll be able to build any game you want without having to write a single line of code using only AI and Unity. So this is what we're gonna do on this video. We're gonna look into the tools we use to vibe code games because they're very different from specifically making a web app or an app. Also, the one big mistake a lot of people make trying to vibe code games. It is a huge mistake, and I'm going to show you 2 ways on how you can make games using AI. The first way is the one that everyone thinks works, which is basically one-shotting a prompt to building a game. And then the second way is the one we use in my own gaming studio, which is helping us build so many high-quality games, which is breaking down systems into smaller pieces. We're going to look into how to plan a game idea, then break down games into smaller pieces. For example, we're building right now Survivor.io core mechanics. How do we break down so that we do not let Claude Code hallucinate or we do not lose control of whatever we're building? You'll also see me how I'm prompting these features to life. And once we do that, we're going to start using placeholder art, and then we're going to see how to generate art using the Unity MCP, and then making sure it is all working inside of the game. But before we start, I just wanted to show you exactly what we're trying to rebuild on this video. So this game is called Survivor.io. It's a game that makes hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's basically a roguelike survivor game. As you can see on this video here, there's a character in the center of the screen that you can move around with a joystick and auto shoot at enemies and collect experience points. Once you collect experience points, you could upgrade your skills. For example, here you are spawning a ball, etc. So our goal on this video is to rebuild this core mechanics. How do we make a game character move around using a joystick in an infinite 2D world? How do we spawn enemies that attack us? How do we make our character attack enemies? And also how to have like a defeat or a win situation in this game. So now that that's clear what we're building, I want to show you the one big mistake a lot of people make. And I've done it here on purpose. So I do have this Unity project that I asked Claude Code here. Basically, you do not see the prompt, but the prompt was just one-shot prompt, me saying, build me a Survivor.io clone. Of course, Claude Code does a good job understanding what you want because it researches Survivor.io without any more context. But the problem with it is that it's going to build everything at once. And as you will see here, this is all it has done. It has done a lot of stuff. And if I open the Unity project to try it out, you will see that it did an okay job. But first things I noticed that it didn't create a joystick because AI is starting to make decisions by itself. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna make a character move with a keyboard, right? And that's not what I asked for. I also did not ask for these orbs that are orbiting the player, which is not what we saw on the video. So what Claude did, it researched all Survivor.io, and most likely these features from Survivor.io are at higher levels, and it tried to condense everything into one gameplay. So now I just lost control of this game, which means if I want to make changes, it's going to be very difficult because it has already built all the systems simultaneously. It has created meta features, level end, level finish, these upgrades here you see here, and the art and how enemies react are also not exactly what's happening in Survivor.io. So I see a lot of people make this mistake where they try to prompt a game into existence from just an idea, or even giving it a full GTD is not enough. Now I want to show you the right way to actually build a game using AI, which is the boring way, and I like to call this framework 80% pre-planning and 20% building. What I mean by that is we pre-plan what we want to build, and then the 20% we give to AI to do. And as you can see here on the screen, what I've done is very simple. I've taken some screenshots from survivor.io. For example, I have a character here in the center, and there's a joystick and enemies, and I just added a few notes. So my notes are: player character is controlled in 2D through a joystick. It auto shoots closest enemy with a minimum distance, and enemies are melee moving towards the player. What this helps me with is that now I can literally just take these notes and turn them into prompts, right? Because they're very detailed prompts. We have a player character that is controlled by a joystick. That would be the first task to give Claude instead of saying build me survivor.io. And then a second step would most likely be generate these backgrounds that are endless. And then another step would be enemies are melee, make them move towards the player, and then add a timer, etc., etc. So this is what I've done. I've taken notes on the skill upgrades too, and the defeat, and how to win and lose the game. So first thing I want to talk about very briefly before we even start doing that, but I wanted to show you the one big mistake a lot of people do before showing you the right way to do stuff. So the tools we're going to use to vibe code survivor.io are Unity. As you can see here, I have a Unity project. That's what I like to build games, but this can work on any game engine you want. Claude Code, which is basically the CLI for the Opus 4.5 model that I want to use from Anthropic, and then a Unity MCP. And Unity MCP is basically very important. It is the only way for Claude Code to be able to do stuff in the Unity editor directly. Let me quickly explain this, because a lot of people coming from apps or web apps, everything is code, right? Whatever you build is actually code. But when you make games, you're actually going through a game engine. And in this game engine, you need to create game objects, you need to put them on a scene, and then you need to render them. Claude Code is great at writing code, but if it is blind from the engine itself and it cannot, for example, add a button here or add a character in the middle of the screen, it will just basically create the script for the player movement and then asks you personally to do stuff. And this is what the MCP will be able to solve for us, which is literally managing the Unity editor directly. So for Claude Code, if you want to install it, you can very quickly go to the documentation. I'll share it in the description. But it's as simple as just copying a few commands on your terminal. For example, you would copy this command and install it. Once that's installed, you would do Claude and then /login. I can make a full video on how to set these up, but I just the goal of this video is not really to walk you through the setup steps, but I will make a video on that very soon. And then for the MCP, I'm using CoPlay. It's also very simple to do. You first need to install the MCP onto the Unity editor. So you go to this link, I'll share it below, and then you copy paste this plugin, you go to Unity, you click Window, Package Management, Package Manager, and then the plus sign here, Git URL, and then paste it and install it. Once you install it, you'll get some sort of editor plugin here. And then after that step, you would go down to CoPlay MCP, click on setting up CoPlay MCP with Claude Code, and then follow these documentations, which I already did. To summarize, we're going to be using Unity as a game engine, Claude Code as our senior software engineer, and Unity MCP as the person managing the editor. So for now, I have this version control, which I wanted to show you one prompt what it does, and I showed you already how it plays, which is not great. It doesn't even have a joystick. It's not really survivor.io just yet. So let me just discard all of those changes so that we can start from scratch, and I'll show you how to prompt these core mechanics into existence. And this is why I recommend highly to use version control when you're vibe coding games or apps or whatever, is that if you're not happy with something, you could just discard those changes and move on. And the way we're going to do it now is every time something works properly, we will commit so that we never lose whatever works right. So now we're starting from scratch. What would be the first step? So now we've went through the tools we're using to vibe code Survivor.io, and we looked at the one big mistake you should make. You should never just say build me a game or give a game design document to build. You should literally just really vibe code this game and start step by step. So the first thing we're going to look into is breaking down the game into smaller pieces, which we already did here, right? We know there's a player controller is controlled in 2D through a joystick. It auto shoots closest enemy with the minimum distance. But the first step is only this. Player character is controlled in 2D through a joystick. So let's do that. Let's open up a new instance of Claude. The way to do that is open Visual Studio Code and then just type Claude. So now that we have a new instance of Claude open, the first thing I want to do, just so that it's clear to Claude what we want to build, is take a screenshot of this, all the notes I've taken and the screens, so that it's clear for Claude what we're building, right? And then I'm going to ask it to build me a game design document from my notes. And then we're going to start asking piece by piece. So I already taken a screenshot of the reference. First thing I'll do here is create a new folder called references. And then inside references, I'm literally just going to drag and drop this one. I taken a screenshot of it. And then I'm going to ask Claude, please read the game design reference image and tell me if you understand what we are trying to build. As simple as that, right? I just want Claude to have the general high-level context, first of all. And then I'm going to ask it to build me a game design document, which I will want it to respect so that every time we do something, it's going to read the GDD. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and break it down into pieces such as, yo, I want a player character in the center. I want the camera to follow the player character. And we break it down into simple steps. So now that it understands, I'm going to ask it to create a GDD based on your understanding and place it inside docs folder. I know this is boring. It is way more fun to just say build survivor.io, but you'll never make an actual good game that way. The only way to do it the right way is to pre-plan stuff with AI and, you know, break the problem down into smaller pieces. This is literally gonna 10x your productivity, first of all. If you waste an extra 20 minutes at the start, but you win hours, but also better quality and control of your project. A lot of people will tell you vibe coders lose control of their projects, and this was one of the reasons they lose control of the project, is that they don't really plan it out and they do not break down the problem small enough. It's never small enough to break down a problem. You could even go and say just add a character in the center without the movements. Like that would be a first step, right? Okay, so it created a GDD. Let's go through it. I do recommend for you to read it and approve if you like it or not. But I think it already did a good job, just because my notes are very clear on those reference images. Cool, so now that that's done, you can see here I have on version control using GitHub Desktop. I'm gonna commit this so that I can come back to it if I want to. Cool, so now what do we wanna build first? What I wanna see here in Unity, which is now an empty project, right? If I click run, there is literally nothing happening. It's just a blue screen. What I want to start seeing now is a character that I can move around in 2D with a joystick. So based on the GDD, I want you to build the character. I want you to build the character controller. So first thing is put a player in the center of the screen and implement a joystick mechanic to move the player around. make sure to use the new input system. Also, I want the joystick to be a floating joystick, meaning wherever I tap, it shows up there. Because if you don't mention floating joystick, basically what's going to happen is going to add it specifically somewhere on the screen and you have to use it from there. You know, like FIFA, like FC Mobile, for example, you have to go on the bottom left and start managing your joystick. But on these types of games, you want to tap anywhere on the screen and move the player. I'm going to also mention for now, you can make use of the square sprite as placeholder for the player character. So this is my prompt, right? I'm like, based on the GDD, read it. I need you to implement a player controller that I can move around with a virtual floating joystick. I mentioned use the new input system because I know for a fact it was going to use the old one and I didn't want to waste time. But even though for you, if you didn't know this information, it could build it and then there's going to be an error and then the CoPlay MCP itself is going to resolve it. Let me also add a follow-up prompt here saying make use of the CoPlay MCP, just so that it's clear for it to use the CoPlay MCP. It is already connected for me, but I just want to be sure. So first thing you see it's doing is exploring the current project. Right now, when I said use the CoPlay MCP, it says, okay, let me list how many Unity projects are open in my computer. And then it's going to set this project as root so that it can communicate with the editor directly through this repo. Awesome. So right now it's creating the player game object with a square sprite and is creating the scripts for player movement and floating joystick, etc. And I don't have to do anything in Unity, right? This is crazy. This is gonna 10x your speed in building games because it's gonna literally manage Unity for you. Like I can literally right now say, make me a build and it's gonna make me an APK or an iOS build. Usually I have to manually do it, right? But not anymore. So that's cool too. As you can see, I'm not actually moving anything. It's creating components here. Just make sure sometimes to go back to Visual Studio because it could ask you permission to do stuff and you have to approve. If you don't approve, then it's just gonna wait for you to approve and does not do work. Of course, I can make another video in the future about Claude bot where you basically give it autonomous and let it build stuff for you while you're sleeping. But for now, for this video, I just want to show you one of the greatest AI workflows to build games right now. As you can already see, right, it already added a player here, which is a square. I can see a joystick in the bottom. And also now it's asking me if I want to save the scene. I recommend just saying always allow because it's going to get annoying if every time it wants to save the scene, it has to ask you permission. So make sure to allow it. It's also going to it's now asking me to play the game. So I'm going to say yes, which means the reason it tries to play the game is so that it can actually see if there's any error logs, which there is, as you can see here. There are error logs here, and now it's going to try to solve them. It's crazy, right? It writes code, it plays the game, and then it checks errors and solves them. So let's see if it has solved those errors, which it did. And as you can see right now, I am actually moving my player. So while it's completing that task, which is a joystick to make a player move, you can start thinking what would be the natural next step for this game, which just by viewing it makes sense that we need to make the camera follow the player, right? Because right now we can move, but we can get out of view very easily, which doesn't make sense, and we need to solve it. But let's just let it finish this first. So as you can see now, it actually told me it finished all the work, but when we test out here, we don't actually see the joystick, even though it's working. Like the mechanics of the joystick are working, but we cannot see it. So we go back to Claude and say, it seems like we are able to move, but I don't see the joystick itself. Can you fix it? Right? And this is how you build games. It's like you test stuff, but instead of you having to write the code, you just let Claude Code does it, and you're just basically a designer and a tester, which I feel is way more exciting in building games. I think coding games and repeating the same stuff over and over again gets boring with time. And what makes more sense is literally just letting AI build and just I stay the creative person. I orchestrate what's going on when I'm building games, which is exciting. This is nuts when you think about it. Like, honestly, like just not long ago, we had to do all of this stuff manually ourselves. Like, we had to buy assets from the asset store just to get a player controller. And now we can get a player controller work in like 5 minutes, which is crazy. Of course, whenever there's something that's taking time for the AI, I'm skipping that part, but I'm not skipping any prompting or what's going on that's important, just to be clear. Okay, so after a few back and forths, which was not that much, I guess it was like a 3 minutes back and forth where I'm like, yo, the joystick is not showing up, it's missing sprites, etc. It seems like it got it to work. As you can see, wherever I tap, the joystick comes up and the character is moving along. So this is awesome. Like, we just made a character controller with a joystick using AI only, and we didn't have to write a single line of code. So this would be the first step. I know it feels like this is taking longer than it should, but this is the right way to do it because now we can manage our project. We know we're only working on the joystick character movement. So we will not move on to the next step until this is done properly. So let's test out. It said it's done. Let's test this out properly. And then if it's done, we're going to commit this change and then we can move on to the next step. Awesome. So this is working. The player is moving exactly like we wanted to. Cool. So next step would be to commit this, and we go here on, I have GitHub desktop, I could say joystick and player movement. Cool, so now we have committed this. Now whatever we do next and is broken, we could just revert it and remove it. So the next prompt would be, cool, that works. Now I want you to make sure the camera always follows the character. That's it. That is my prompt, right? It is very broken down into such a tiny piece where I know exactly how it's implementing it, but also why it's implementing it. And if something breaks, I know I only have to fix the camera follow system instead of me trying to figure it out with the AI. What's broken? Is it the movement? Is it the camera, etc.? Because now I know the character movement works. The next step is whatever it implements is the camera. If there's something broken, means there's the camera follow that's not working properly. So the AI now is working on it. As you can see, yeah, so as you can see, it's already doing a lot of stuff. So it went to the main camera, it created a script called camera follow, and it basically attached the player transform to it, the speed at what it follows, and the offset, right? So it is already doing a lot of stuff. It seems like it has finished doing it. So let's see how that looks. It might not look like nothing because we don't have any backgrounds or obstacles, but we can see here on the scene on the left here, we are moving along and the camera is following the player. However, I noticed that there's a jitter, right? Every time I'm moving, it's jittering. So I'm going to come back here and say to Claude, I noticed that the camera, I noticed that the player jitters, maybe it's the camera issue, but we need it to follow exactly the player smoothly without any delay, just like on survivor.io. I know I can make this prompt way better, but let's fix the jittering issue first. And I feel like once that jitter issue is gone, then it's gonna look good. So right now it's telling me the jitter is caused by the timing mismatch between physics, fixed update, and camera. I don't need to know this, even though I do. I am a software engineer, but who cares, right? Let Claude Code figure it out on what's going on. Is it the physics or is it the translation of stuff or transforms, whatever. Okay, cool. So it has done, it made 2 fixes. Let's see. Let's see if it's lying to us, if it's true. Make sure to look here on the scene view because that's where you see the camera view. We don't have backgrounds or enemies or anything, so it could look like we're not moving. As you can see here, on the left side, we are moving and the camera is following us smoothly, which is awesome. So we can literally just commit this camera follow player, commit it and push to origin. So now what I'm gonna do is, I'm not super happy with how big the player is. I'm just gonna say, can you make the player smaller? It is currently too big. Make use of the reference image inside references and how enemies and players sizes are. So let's see what it does. And it's gonna make the player smaller. Makes sense that it needs to fit how survivor.io, size and how everything scales and how it looks exactly like that. And that's why I'm using the reference right now. So it's already doing a lot of cool stuff. It already made the player smaller, way smaller. And basically, I think that's cool. And then we can always make it bigger in the future if we're not happy with it. But let's test it out. Yeah, it's still working, so that's cool. Okay, so now that it's done, it adjusted the size. I'm also going to commit that if there was any changes. Wait, I think it didn't save it. So what happened was that it said it scaled it, it did, but then it kind of reverted its change. I feel like you reverted your changes. Make sure to apply them to the player. Yeah, it feels like it did change it, which we saw it made them smaller, but then again, for some reason, it made them bigger again somehow. Because right now the player is still 1, even though it said it scaled it to 0.3. You're right, the scales back on the channel were lost because we were made during play mode. Let me reapply them. Yeah, so the mistake it made was that it made changes during play mode, which is okay. Okay, cool. So let's play and see what happens. Awesome. So we do have a character moving. It's not clear now just because we don't have any backgrounds. But let me commit that. Make character smaller. So what would be the next natural thing to do, in my opinion, is let's add those forever backgrounds that repeat, just so that it's clear for us we're moving around in this environment, just like we do here, right? So what we're gonna do right now is ask Claude Code, okay, cool, let's now work on the infinite background that repeats as we move. Use the reference image to create a background exactly like that. Add references, let me use medium quality, use the CoPlay MCP to generate it. This is important to note because CoPlay MCP has the plugin which is attached to the editor. And if you have a subscription with CoPlay, you can generate images directly through CoPlay, which is very cool if you don't have art and you just want to generate art directly from Claude Code. But you would have to pay a extra subscription for it that is outside of Claude Code. But if you're an artist or you already have art from the asset store, you could use that instead. This is not a must. I just want to show you how you can use the Unity MCP to generate images. If I go back here to CoPlay, you see it's generating an image and it's currently generating that background image. So let's get back once that's done. Okay, so awesome. It already generated this image. We can see it here inside sprites, background, and basically this is what it has generated. It's not exactly like Survivor.io, but who cares? We're not trying to launch this game. We're just showing you how you can build any idea you get. So that's cool. Now it's gonna build the infinite background generation. What it's gonna do is, based on this image, it's gonna go forever, just like Survivor.io, where every time you move closer to the end, it generates that background there so that you could move around as if you're in this endless world. Okay, so it seems like it has implemented the infinite version of it. However, if you can see here, like this background is way too big. Like this should be like just a line on the road, but it's way too big. And I think it's because it created scale of times 10. So I'm gonna write here, the background is way too big. Oh, wait. So Claude is very smart. Like without me even sending that prompt, it said the background is showing, but it's too zoomed in. The tile is scale 10x, which is very large. Let me adjust the scale to better match the camera view. So I'm just gonna tell it why, like the background is way too big. Why don't you just make it 1x1 since it infinitely spawns? No need to zoom in that much. Yeah, for some reason it wants to do 20 by 20 and it should just be 1 by 1. So yeah, I just told it the background is too big. Why don't you just make it 1 by 1 on the scale? And then and the reason I'm able to do this, because as I mentioned, I'm still in control of this project. We are working step by step and I can control how this background looks because I'm only focused on this specific task. So let's see what it's doing. And as you can see now, it made it 1 by 1 on a scale level. And look at this. Oh my God. This looks nice. This looks really, really nice. This looks really nice. The issue I see though is that sometimes it's spawning outside of the norms and it should only spawn close by so that there's no empty spots. So let's see if it's gonna fix it itself. Let's see, let's play test and see. But this is awesome. Like with one picture, we have basically an endless world, as you can see here. Every time I move, this is awesome. So we do have this bug. Let me share it with Claude. It looks great. However, sometimes there is a gap between backgrounds. Let's make sure to generate them in a way where there is never a gap. But this is crazy, right? Like we were able to do a lot of cool stuff from Survivor.io in I guess half an hour or something like that. And you can see the difference now. We can actually control our project, right? Like if there's a bug, we know we're only working on this specific task, so AI will not lose itself. So let's see how it solves this problem. I could have made a better prompt, but I just want to show you that Claude is actually very smart at fixing these things. Okay, so it seems like it's done fixing that bug we had where we had gaps between backgrounds infinitely spawning. Let me wait for it to complete this and try it out. Let's try it out. Let's go into play mode. This is exciting. That would have taken me a lot of time to do it myself. As you can see now, this is starting to look like Survivor.io. I'm not gonna lie. This is awesome. Look, there's no gaps. I can go infinitely up and it's just gonna work. Awesome. So what do we do next, right? Like we need to commit this. Infinite background generation. Cool, commit to main. and push. Awesome. So just to recap right now, if we go back to this page, we have this background, an infinite background. We have this character, we have this joystick. We're basically halfway there. We're almost there. What's missing now is having enemies spawn and move towards me at a slower speed. But before I do that, I want to replace the current square with something that looks like this character. So I have a reference of that, and cool, now I want to replace the square with an actual character. Here you go. I have attached it. Make sure its background is transparent. I have it somewhere here. Here we go. So I'm attaching a reference. It's just this image, by the way, of the survivor.io character. And now I asked it specifically to replace the square with this character. I mean, generate a character that looks like that, of course. So what it's doing is the CoPlay is communicating with the CoPlay editor. I mean, the MCP is communicating with the CoPlay editor to generate that image using Gemini Nano Banana. So that's also very cool. I can make a full video on how you could use those stuff too. Okay, it seems like it has generated the image. Let's see. It basically just removed the background. Okay, cool. Player, here it is. It's created. That's cool. That's awesome. It looks exactly like that, but it's way too big. So let's see what Claude does. If it doesn't make it smaller, I'm just going to ask it to make it way smaller. This is nuts though, right? Like I'm talking to Claude and I'm generating art assets. I'm building code and I'm building almost the core mechanics are almost there. This is nuts. So one thing I'm not happy about, but because I know this as a software engineer, is that it's scaling here, but I do prefer if it scales the image itself, the pixels per unit. It's just better to handle, but for now, I'm not gonna intervene. I'm just gonna let AI decide by itself what it wants to do. So let's let it complete what it's doing, but I honestly think that this is already crazy that we're almost at this stage in such a small time. So let's try it out, right? It said it's done. Let's play the game and see what happens. Okay, so we do have that character that's moving around. It's too big. I'm gonna say, let's make it 50% of the current size since player seems a little too big. Just reduce its size by 50%. I just want it to really, really look like this, you know, from this video. That's all I want. I want it to be this small. So let's wait and see. And also I think my next move is very simple. Is right now I notice that the character is always facing a specific direction. And I want, if I'm moving left, for the player to look left. And if I'm moving right, the player to move right. I'm back. I didn't make any changes. I didn't ask any prompts. The only prompt was make the player 50% smaller. Let's test it out. It seems like it understood what I was asking for. So, oh my God, this is looking great. Let's look quickly here with this. Is there really a difference? Is there really a difference when we made this in like half an hour or a little more? That is so cool. So my next prompt is very simple. I'm going to say, cool, I now want the character to face the direction. If we move joystick left, it should look to the left. If we move joystick right, it should look to the right, just so that we reproduce what survivor.io does. For example, if I move left here, he needs to look this way, and I want to see how it can figure it out by itself. And then once that's done, we're gonna commit again. And we're gonna tackle the next natural thing, which is basically spawning enemies that attack me and I try to survive. And then once that's done, we're gonna add the player character trying to auto attack stuff. By the way, if you're like really intrigued and want to learn coding, you could actually just follow along what Claude Code is doing right now, especially when you go as detailed as we are right now. It shows you exactly what it does to flip a character, right? And then you'll know how to do it if you want to code yourself. I think it's also a trick to learn how to code. Okay, so it seems like Claude finished. Let's see, moment of truth. Let's run the game and see if it actually looks at the right direction. So if I'm moving right, this is awesome. Just look at this. If I'm moving on the right with the joystick, and now it's rotating this side and this side. This is so cool. This is really, just look at this. Okay, I'm gonna show you this. And then I'm gonna show you this. Is there really a difference in the movement? I'm talking about the movement, right? Cool. So let's commit that. I think it's very important to commit it. Change player character and commit it. And let's go. Okay, so what would be the next natural step to build? Now we have the character movement that looks nice and that is infinite backgrounds. We have a joystick. The next move is to spawn enemies that move towards us, right? And before we do that, you always need to check the context of Claude, because if it's in the middle of doing something and you have to compact the conversation, it could break stuff. So what you need to do here, if it's below like 15%, 20%, you do backslash compact. And that's it. You do backslash compact and you let it compact. And then you could start the next tasks. Okay, cool. So now that we have compacted, all I've done, I've skipped the compacting because it takes some time, but that's what you'll see. It's basically going to do a summary, but I'll still ask it to read the GDD again. So what we said before is next step is to spawn enemies that move towards a player. So let's do that. Now, based on the GDD, I want you to work on the enemy behavior. The goal is that we spawn enemies that move towards the character. More enemies are spawned as time goes, so that it gets more difficult as it goes. Okay, so one thing I noticed after compacting the conversation is that the AI kind of lost track of which scene it needs to work on, and it's trying to save it inside of sample scene. So let me help it out by saying the game scene is game scene and not sample scene, just to be clear. Because when we compacted, it kind of lost that context, and this happens, so make sure you are in charge of what's going on here. It somehow lost, yeah, it lost track of which scene it needs to work on. But what I want to tell it is use this game scene, the game scene inside assets, game scene. So I just want to be very precise on which scene I want it to work on so that it's not confused. This happens especially when you compact a conversation, when you lose context, but don't worry about it. The way we're building this game, which is a step-by-step process, is okay because everything is working now. Now we're just working specifically on the enemy spawning. So whatever breaks now is okay. We could just discard it and work on it again. But I believe now that I gave it more context that you should be using the game scene, it's going to start using the game scene. So let's see what it's doing. As you can see, it has generated a game object here called enemy spawner, and it's going to give it a basic enemy prefab. This is what something you would be doing. It just does it faster than you. It does it faster than any human can. So that's cool. By the way, if you see me skipping in a video, it's just that it's boring just waiting for the AI to complete what it's doing. Sometimes it takes 2 minutes for a task, and it's better to just skip it once it finishes. But again, I'm not skipping any prompt I'm making or any results it's doing. And that's the most important part, so that you see the mistakes it makes, but also how to resolve those mistakes. So make sure to stay tuned till the end so that you see how you can build systems with AI and prompt a game into existence. We're actually already very close to this, so just bear with me, we're almost there. Okay, so it's telling me that the base enemy is already spawning. Let's go check it out here. It's already playing the game. Let's see. Okay, cool. As you can see, I have enemies trying to look for me, and they're also changing their direction as I go. This is very cool. This is very, very cool. It's already looking a lot closer to this, as you can see. I know they are moving way faster. These ones are super slow, so I'm gonna ask it to reduce the speed of the enemies too. Isn't it insane though? Isn't it insane that when you break down the problem into pieces, you actually get what you want? You saw the result it did when I just said buildmesurvivor.io, and now you can see it actually getting really close to survivor.io core mechanics. We're still missing a few stuff, but this is cool. Okay, just came back. It finished doing its job. It says the enemy system is working. If you want to read through it to understand what's going on, but here's the summary. So the enemies are spawning and moving towards the player, which is exactly what we want. The next steps based on the GDD would be player health system and damage on collision, auto attack system to kill enemies, XP drops from killed enemies, level up, and perk selection. So first thing we want to do is don't ask it to do anything. For now, we just say, we go and commit and say, create the enemy spawning system. That's the next step. Next step is not to build the next feature. The next step is to save what's working right now, which is looking great, to be honest. If we play again, it is actually looking great. Like, we have a player that looks at the direction we're moving. We have enemies attacking us with the same size, which is very cool. We are faster than them, so that's cool too. So the next step for me would be, instead of player health and damage on collision, I want to work on the auto attack system to kill enemies. Let's work on auto attack system to kill enemies, generate a dagger. To do that, I want to shoot daggers at the closest. Let's kill them on hit, on one hit, and not needing multiple hits to kill. So now we're moving on onto the auto attack, which auto attacks the closest enemy to you, which is basically one of the main parts of the core game loop. And you'll see how Claude is going to do a great job. I just believe this can 10x productivity for any game developer or game designer. Let's say you're thinking of a game, you're not sure if it's going to work out. You can literally just do what I just did, build it, play it, and see if it's fun. If it's fun, then you can decide whether you want to spend, a month working on this, basically just on core gameplay. Because if you were to build the full game yourself, whatever we did now could have taken you a couple of days instead of an hour or two, right? So this is very important to note. Okay, it seems like the image has been generated properly. Let's go see very quickly here, projectiles, and we have this dagger. I don't know if it looks great, but it's okay. This dagger is way... Okay, that looks nice. So it's making it small enough, etc. Cool. Maybe it's not visible enough. We can ask it to change that later, but I don't think it matters right now. Like, we're just trying to build a core gameplay, and then polishing is an afterthought to me. We just want to build the game, make it work, and then figure out what to do with polishing. And this is me just briefly prompting, right? If I was using the systems we build at Tap You Go in my gaming studio, where every prompt is very important and is very detailed, we would have seen even a better version of Survivor.io on this video. But if I was gonna do that, that would take me a couple of hours of video filming. So I want you guys to make a win without having to watch a 5-hour video, and just to be more efficient. So let's see. it said it's done. So let me try it out. Let me try it out right now. Okay, so I'm walking around. I can see this. Sometimes they get hit, sometimes they do not get hit. Maybe I need to hit them multiple times, that's why. Okay, so it is working, but it's not working great. Sometimes the daggers miss enemies. Let's make sure they do not miss when they are shot. And only one hit to kill an enemy. And I'm gonna show you a neat trick to add juice to the game. So there's this package called Feel. Let me find it. Asset Store Feel. So there's this package called Feel where it gives you juice to the game. I know it's a paid package, unfortunately, but if you give access to Claude to this package, it's gonna add juice to, for example, when you hit an enemy, it's gonna spark some particle effects, some animations, damage numbers, etc. And that's what we're gonna use in a minute once it's done with fixing the daggers not hitting the enemies. But if you look at like this game, Survivor.io, when we hit the enemy, right, there's this particle effect and this damage number that shows up, and we want to implement that, and we don't want to implement that from scratch, so we're going to use the package called Feel. But you could still try to make AI do the juice without an external package, but I just wanted to show you how you can also communicate with assets from the asset store to do whatever you want. So let's go. Let's see if it fixed the issue we had. But I don't see the enemies. Okay, it's killing them. So now I see a problem, right? It's shooting from way afar. It is working, but we need a min distance to start attacking because currently we are shooting from afar any enemy that spawns, right? This is not what we want. That's not the behavior. The behavior is if they're close enough, we start shooting at them. But right now, every time an enemy is spawned, we basically shoot at the closest one, and we're basically killing them very quickly. So right now, it's gonna try to reduce the attack range for the player to only shoot when enemies are closer, which makes sense. So it seems like what I was talking about attack range is somewhere here where we have attack range 5, and we can reduce it if we want. Okay, now it's way better. Well, now it's way better. Okay, they need to be close enough. Awesome. Cool. So let's commit that, right? Like everything that works, we should commit, and we say here, auto attack enemies. That's done. And we can always polish and improve on how many enemies start attacking us. But I think the next move is I really want to show you how to use the Feel package or any package that you have already from the Unity asset store, or if you decide to purchase a Unity assets from the asset store, that would be awesome too, because why pay other people to build you art where you could literally just buy a package that exists, give it to Claude, and let Claude use it however you want. Okay, so Claude has finally finished checking. It was checking whether it was working properly. The next step, and this is gonna blow your mind, I'm gonna be like, okay, cool. I now need you to improve the feel and juice of killing enemies. For example, blood particles slightly when we hit an enemy. When killing, give him some sort of cloud spoof skeleton when killed. You can make use of the feel package and of the feel package, yes. So what I'm saying here is I want you to improve how enemies die instead of just them disappearing out of thin air. Add some sort of particle effect when they're hit. Make sure enemies do not just weirdly disappear and give it juice when they die. So that is my next step. And this is where things change, because making games is all about feel and juice. If your game does not have the feel or juice to it, then it's just boring, right? Like we were seeing these enemies that get destroyed very quickly and it was not satisfying to watch. We want to make it satisfying to watch. And you could either build your own packages or you could use a third-party package to do so. I like to use Feel. I'm not sponsored by them, but I like to use Feel specifically because it's great at adding juice to a game, right? And we use it at Tap You Go endlessly on anything that needs juice or feedback. The Feel package also adds haptic feedback. You know those vibrations when you kill someone or camera shakes, etc. So it also does that, which is awesome. So as you can see now, it's creating some sort of poof particles and blood particles. And let's see what it does. It might not get it great at the first time, but I do prefer if Claude just takes over and figures out how Feel works and implements it in the current context, which Claude has awesome context now in the game. It built the game, right? Instead of me having to go through the Feel documentation and understand how it works and then start implementing stuff. And this would work the same exact way if you wanted to integrate ads into your game. So you basically just tell Claude, yo, I want a rewarded ad at this stage. I want a banner ad here. I want to sell coins, add it to the shop, manage everything. So you just give it the packages and it handles it. So it's very cool. So while it's doing that, I just want to recap what we've done here. Is we looked at the tools we're using to vibe code the game. We looked at the one big mistake. We pre-planned it. We are looking at how to break down the game into smaller pieces and then how to prompt based on those smaller pieces, and then polishing comes after. We are doing kind of like semi-polishing now by using the Feel package to add juice. But once this works, once we can add juice to killing enemies, we're gonna implement enemies also dealing damage to us, and then we add an HP bar, but also collecting experience points that's gonna increase this progress bar that gives us these sort of skills. We're not gonna do too much on this. We're just gonna give some sort of extra skills to it and then build some sort of defeat UI screen, a very simple one, of course. We don't have to build exactly the same one, but if we wanted to spend more time on it, I would say, for example, if you want to spend 2 days on this game, you can literally reproduce all this art also in the UI and the flow. And but again, the major thing I want you guys to take away on this video is how you can make any game you see on the mobile app store and make it real, right? Like you think about it, you like it. For example, you could take the survival.io and you have another twist, and then you can implement it. And on this video, I wanted to show you how you could use this AI workflow to break things down into such small problems where there's most likely no chance of the AI screwing up the game, right? And it will build it exactly like you want it. We're back. After 11 minutes, I guess, of this, it seems like it said it's done. Let's test it out ourselves. Let's test out how the feedback when hitting an enemy feels. Is there a particle effect, etc.? And how can we improve it too? So let's see where, nice. That is awesome. So they're not just disappearing anymore. We're actually destroying them. That is so cool. So I'm not happy that it's pink, but it kind of makes sense because these zombies are pink. So let's just leave it like that for now. And I would say to add even more juice to it, what we could do is, you see these numbers spawning when you hit them, when you kill them, right? I want to do that too. I want to do that. So let's do it. Okay, cool. I want you to use Feel to add a damage number spawning when killing enemy. You can also use do tween if needed. Make it look nice and polished. For damage number, you can just use a static 10 for now. So what I've asked it to do is basically whenever we kill an enemy or hit it, it's gonna spawn these numbers on top of it. I just think it makes sense. So let's see what it does. And what is DoTween? DoTween is basically an animation package that I don't even know if we have it in the project. Let me see. I think we have DoTween. Yeah, we do. We have DoTween. So I asked it to use DoTween to animate those numbers going up. As you can see, I don't want to personally use DoTween. I just want Claude to use it. So let's see. It said it's already installed. Let me create damage number system. So this is how you build the game, really. It's a step-by-step process until you get to the full core loop, and then you start adding meta progression, you start adding levels. It's something that if I make a full video on, that could be like a 5 hours video. But I think what we're doing now, which is just a core loop, makes more sense for you guys to understand how to start building games with AI. Okay, so it seems like it's done something, and let me test it out. Where are the enemies? Nice. You saw that number spawning? Nice, nice, nice. This is awesome. As you can see, AI is crazy. Claude is crazy. I don't like the yellow color. I'm gonna ask it to make it white, but this is cool. So I don't like yellow, so I'm gonna say I prefer if you made the number white with black stroke or outline. So I don't like yellow. I want white and it has outlines like this is just a detail, right? I just want to make it even better, but just to show you how detailed you can be and how you can keep improving stuff, etc. But this is starting to look very close to this, to be honest. I think we're only missing collecting experience points. I also think we should make the dagger a little bigger. So we're gonna do that after. Okay, so it seems like it's done, apparently. Let's go try it out. Okay, we're here. Yes, awesome. So it did exactly what I asked it to do. We're good. It seems like we're good. The mechanics are working. Awesome, cool. So our next step is let's commit this and add juice to killing enemies. In any ways, we have a working mechanic. What would be the next natural process is let's have an experience bar. And first, before we, I changed my mind. So instead of having work on the experience bar first, let's work on a survival timer. So when the level starts, we start with 0, 0, 0. And then as we survive and we don't die, that number increases. So let's do that. Okay, cool. This is my prompt now. Okay, cool. I want to implement a survived timer now. When we start with 0, 0, 0, 0. And as we go in the game, the time increases every second. Use the reference image here to figure out exactly where to place and the size of the text. You can also use casual. I have a UI package that I want to use, so I'm just showing you how you could have packages such as UI packages that are already made and ask AI to use them. Use it, and it's prefabs to make it look good. Let's come back once this prompt is over. It just takes time, right? I don't want you guys to watch the whole thing while I'm waiting. Okay, we're back. So it's saying that it's done. Fingers crossed. Let's go check it out. Okay, so we do have a timer on the top, and then as we're surviving, we get increase. So like 11 seconds, 12 seconds. Cool. So that's working. Let's leave it at that. That's awesome. So basically this is supposed to be this. I know on Survivor.io it looks better, but we could always polish later, right? So it doesn't matter really. It's just the mechanics now are working. So let's just commit that and say timer working. Cool. Now, what I want to implement is I want our character to have an HP bar below it, just like Survivor.io. You can look at the reference image. And I want whenever an enemy collides with me and still collides with me, I get dealt damage and update the HP bar accordingly. If I hit 0 or less, I die. Make use of our casual game slider for progress bar. Make use of the prefab for it. So what I just asked it now is I want to have an HP bar just like here on Survivor.io, and whenever an enemy collides with me, I start losing health until I die. And then this way, it's a natural progression to show a defeat screen that shows us our current survive time with our best and compare it. So that's cool too. So by the way, if you want to learn more details on this, also get access to this repo, I am opening up a community specifically for people that are trying to build games with AI and Claude and learn more about it, but also get expert feedback from the Tap You Go team. Feel free to join the community right now where we could help you out whenever you're building a game, but also give you feedback, give you some sort of leverage on how you can utilize AI, but also how to do market research on what games work in the market and how to work with publishers, etc. The whole flow. So the link is in the description. Feel free to join if you want to. Okay, it seems like it's finally done with the HP bar under the feet. Let's try it out very quickly. I'm running the game. Awesome. So now we have an HP bar. That is so cool. Okay, we are getting very close. So now what we could do is the next step would be this gems generation, and then when we kill enemies, we basically collect those gems so that we get experience points. If we go back to our design document, we have this in detail, and it has the perk system also with it. So what I'm gonna do before working on that is add player health and HP bar, just so that we have it saved. And I'm gonna go to Claude. Okay, cool, thanks for that. Now work on this. So I just gave it the game design doc description on how these gems should be collected, and when you level up, which is basically this bar when it fills 100%, you level up and then you get these perks that you can pick from, and then we're almost there and completing this core game loop, and AI was able to do that in less than 2 hours, which is awesome. So very excited for it. Let's see what the AI says. So Claude is now building it. Let's wait for it. And then if there's any improvements we need to be made, we can just keep prompting it until it's done. But I think you guys get what I mean by breaking things into smaller problems. You're always going to get better results. So hopefully this was helpful. Okay, so after some time, Claude Code was able to implement all of this feature, which we were talking about. It's the same feature here, where enemies basically drop these experience points, and then when you have enough experience points, you get some sort of skill choice. So let's test it out and see what it has done. Let's go. Okay, I already see a progress bar for leveling up, etc. Exciting stuff. Okay, so let's kill some enemies and see what happens. Where are the enemies? Okay, so I do have an experience points. Awesome. Awesome. I am collecting that. This is just crazy. This is crazy, right? This is already working. Now we're leveling up. We get some sort of perks. The art doesn't look great, but still I get some sort of perks to level up. And whenever I kill enemies, I collect the orbs and the experience points here. What I want to do next, very briefly, is I want more enemies. I want it to be more fun and go crazy with how many enemies attack me. So let's try that out. So first, before we do that, let's commit experience and perk system. Done. Always commit your changes, but here we go. Okay, cool. That's working great. Next thing I want you to work on is currently I feel like enemy does not ramp up fast enough. I only see 1 to 3 enemies. I want hordes of enemies, just like in survivor.io. Just like survivor.io, right? Like I want a lot of enemies attacking me as time goes by. So let's see what Claude can do with this, and let's go. I'm super excited because we're at the end of this. We literally just rebuilt the core mechanics of a survivor.io game, which is really a $100 million game, even though it's the simple version of it. But I promise you, if we spend more time on it, we can also start adding a lot of depth and the progression and the balancing, a lot of crazy stuff. But what's crazy is that we were able to build in 2 hours survivor.io core mechanics, which includes the joystick and player movements infinitely in a 2D world. We were able to spawn enemies, experience points, level up. This is a roguelike game already. And of course, if we keep working on it and polishing it, it's gonna look way better. And you'll see now when we start adding even more enemies, it's gonna look crazy. Okay, so after 1 minute and 23 seconds, it seems like Claude has finished the task. Let's test it out. Let's see how many enemies we get. Does it go crazy? Let's play for around 30 seconds. Cool, let's go. Oh, nice. As you can see now, we have way more enemies. And we can level up. Cool. This is awesome. So just to recap what we've done, let's go back to our plan mode. And basically, from these 3 pictures, we were able to reproduce a lot of the core game mechanics of this game, right? If you can see here, it's basically shooting at enemies, and then there's hordes of enemies attacking you, and you need to survive the longest. And from just taking a few notes here, we were able to break down the problem and build it. As you can see here, if I open my Unity project, of course we can polish way more and get it to an even better state, but this is just to show you the power of having the right workflow, right? If you look into this, look, this is exactly like survivor.io with the roguelike systems and the perks and the upgrades. So this is awesome. A game that's made just over $500 million, and we were able to rebuild the core mechanics of it in just 1 session with AI. Think about it, there's never been a lower barrier than now to making games. You don't need to be a senior developer or have tens of years of experience working on Unity to be able to ship real games to the stores anymore. All you need is a clear plan, the right AI tools, and the right workflow. That is exactly what I'm building a community around. We build games together with AI, we share prompts and processes and knowledge, and we ship real games together. If that sounds like your thing, the link is in the description. Feel free to join us and come build with us. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video and you found it helpful to make any type of game idea you want. And feel free to subscribe and like this video. On to the next one.